The hypocrisy in all this, it's so loud, it's deafening.
Joining us now, Washington Post columnist and CNN political analyst Josh Rogin. What do you say to that, Josh? He says it's hypocritical.
Well, this is just the latest effort by Greg Norman to do what we call sports washing, which is to take money from a brutal regime and then use it to legitimize that regime in the eyes of his fans and of the world. And, you know, the basic argument he's making is the I am rubber, you are glue defense, which is most often found on schoolyards by 5-year-olds. You know, it's like, oh, well, I'm not the only one who took blood money. Other people took blood money. But
is he wrong? Is there something different between what he's doing, which is this entire Saudi-backed league, versus sponsors who have business in Saudi Arabia? Why?
Yes. Now, first of all, to be clear, taking blood money is always wrong. So it doesn't justify people doing business with odious regimes. But what he's doing is he's taking specific money for a specific program of sports washing, which is Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia's effort to buy off Western elites by buying U.S. and international sports franchises in order to distract people from his crimes, including the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, for which there's been no accountability and justice, including the jailing of the women journalists, which is ongoing, the execution of gays, which is ongoing. So it's one thing to do business with a regime that commits atrocities. It's another thing to take a specific project that's meant for a specific sports washing effort and to endorse it. Because what Greg Norman is getting paid for is not just for organizing a golf league. He's getting paid for doing these press conferences, for going out into the world and saying, oh, everyone's doing it. What's the big deal? Everyone's doing it. No big deal. It is a big deal. It's an escalation of the whitewashing of the Saudi atrocities and an escalation of the payment that he's getting to participate.
And Josh, how would you assess the difference between how Greg Norman handles these questions, or in that case, dodges the question, and Phil Mickelson, who, look, he received a lot of criticism for how he responded to questions from journalists, but he did answer them. He did talk about his empathy for the victims, the families of the victims of 9/11.
Right. Well, what Phil Mickelson said, according to reports about the new book coming out, is that the Saudis are scary MFers. I'm paring it down because it's a family show. But we're doing business because we're trying to get leverage over the PGA. Now, that's honest, at least. At least he's being honest about his motivations. There's a lot more than I can say for Greg Norman, who's saying there's nothing to see here and everything's fine and this is going to be good for Saudi Arabia. It's not good for Saudi Arabia. It's just good for one Saudi Arabian, Mohammed bin Salman. For the rest of the Saudi Arabians who are suffering under the crimes of Mohammed bin Salman, it's very bad. It makes their situation worse. At least Phil Mickelson's being upfront about the transactional nature of his sports washing for his own ends. But that doesn't make it right because, you know, in the end, it's not as if you can, you know, when you have a grievance with your boss, you can just go to the most evil dictator and to get him to outbid your boss. It's not like if I was unhappy at the Washington Post, I would just go to Kim Jong-un and say, hey, you want to purchase my services? That's not right. It's not honorable. It's not just. But at least it's a more transparent line of explanation than Greg Norman is willing to offer.
The thing Greg Norman tries to hang his hat on repeatedly is this idea where he says golf is a force for good.
Right.
What do you say to that?
Well, you know, Brianna, you're more of a golf fan than I am. I don't really know what the factual basis for that is. But what he's trying to convince us of is that if the Saudis are allowed to buy up golf, then it'll be good for, that it'll have a reforming effect on Saudi Arabia, which is the exact opposite of what we're seeing. And just look at what's going on in Saudi Arabia. The abuses are going up. The repression is going up. Every indication shows that the richer and more powerful MBS gets, and the more he's able to purchase elites, to purchase Westerners, to put them in his pocket and then deploy them to push his propaganda, it actually makes it much harder for the activists, the dissidents, and the suffering. And that's the real problem with what Greg Norman is saying here. By pointing at the PGA and pointing at this guy and that guy, he's distracting us from the suffering of the victims. Those people are not taking Saudi money. Those people are being crushed by the Saudi regime. And their voices are the ones that need to be elevated, not the voices of Greg Norman and Phil Mickelson, because they're the ones who are actually undergoing great suffering at the hands of Mohammed bin Salman and the rest of his thuggish regime.
Hey, Josh, while we have you here and we're talking about Saudi Arabia, what do you think of how the Biden administration, how they have answered questions about the president's trip to Saudi Arabia and whether he'd meet one-on-one with Mohammed bin Salman, what he's been promised prior to the trip?
You know, I think their line of like, oh, well, maybe we'll see Mohammed bin Salman because he might be at the meeting is pretty disingenuous, actually, John, because, of course, everybody knows that President Biden has been avoiding the meeting with Mohammed bin Salman for a year and a half, and now he's folding because he wants the oil. And I don't think that's a good decision pragmatically because I think that enforces all the wrong behaviors. But at least the White House should just be honest about it. If they want to say that they're folding because we need the oil and that's just human rights is going to have to take a back seat, at least that would be honest. But what they're trying to say is, oh, well, we're just going to the meeting and if he shows up, he shows up, which everybody knows is nonsense. But I also think if they did make that argument that we need to trade oil for human rights, that's also bad policy because in the end, we're not going to see an improvement in their oil purchases that's going to really make a difference on inflation, but we are going to see a real damage to the cause of promoting human rights. And the Biden administration says that they have a human rights-centered focus, human rights-centered foreign policy, but when push comes to shove, human rights always gets the short shrift. And I think Biden knows that. And that's why he's embarrassed about actually folding. And that's why it's taken so long. And he seems sort of mealy-mouthed about it. But when he gets there, there will be no doubt he's going hat in hand to beg a brutal dictator for some oil. And in exchange, he's turning a blind eye to the human rights abuses of that dictator. And if you think that's good, that's fine.